screen now. I can see it now. Okay. So the 5 laws of GNM, just bullet points. The first law is about the conflict, so it's about the conflict, the psyche. The second law is about healing phases. The third law is about the embryology and its relationship to the control system, the brain as a control system, and which organs are affected. The fourth law is all about your microbes and fungi and how they are the helper cells. The fifth law is an amalgamation, a synthesis of all the 4 laws. That's the skeletal framework of the 5 laws. So I'm going to be referring to my notes just because I don't want to miss anything. So if we go to the first law, that's about the conflict. And I'm going to be presenting it in bullet points. I'm not going to be going deep into this. I'll save that for you as your assignment if you want to go deeper. But essentially, the reason that I would like to do this is to present it in a pattern so that you can recognize the patterns. Because if you are still confused about the 5 laws, you will be more confused when she presents more topics in the future, because the other body systems superimpose sometimes 2 to 3 germ layers. So for example, the retina, the eyeball, has 3 germ layers. So if you don't understand the germ layers, you're going to be confused with the symptoms. So for the first law, it's the DHS, it's the conflict. The conflict has special qualities. It's not just any conflict that you determine it to be. No, it has to be sudden and unexpected. It has to be emotionally distressing. It can be unconscious. Sometimes it is conscious. When it's that, then good, then you can help the client. But if it's unconscious, then you have more work to do, or the client has more work to do. So it's most of the time it's unconscious. Sometimes it is consciously perceived. And it is very much subjective because it goes through our filters of family, religion, society, culture, what have you. And when the conflict happens, it's automatically registered in the 3 areas: the psyche, the brain, and the organ. So the emotional component, the neurologic, and then physical. It's automatic. You will consider all 3 one body. They're not separate. They're always functioning as one. That is the first law. Any questions? We're going to be done in an hour. That's the first law. Again, this is just, I'm trying to give it to you as a pattern so you can see the associations later on. That's the first law. Ask your questions now. Was that too simple? We can make it more complicated. Oh, you're all muted, sorry.
No, I said it gets complicated later on.
Yes. Yes.
Richie, you say the first law is subjective and not conscious. So basically, it's just emotional.
Most of the time, it's unconscious. It's always subjective.
Always.
The subjective part is it's always subjective because we're the one perceiving. But the unconscious, I would say maybe 70% of the time is unconscious, and then there's a 30% that we are aware that we are having a conflict.
Okay.
I'm just going to pipe in here and suggest that it can be confusing when you're working with someone and they've had this conflict for many, many years.
Yeah.
So difficult for them to start unpacking the root. Maybe you could speak on that.
Yes. So our roles, the most important part of our roles when we see clients is assessing whether should you make, hold on a second. Oh, Amber is trying to log on. Okay, hold on. Passcode GNM. Okay. Sorry, just letting you know, Amber may log on. Was it-
I'm
so-
here now. I was finally able to get in.
Oh, hi, Amber.
Hi. The passcode said it was a number and it wasn't working, so I tried GNM because
I missed
last
that
time it
too.
worked.
Sorry, change the passcode to GNM. I couldn't log on to.
Okay.
I didn't read the memo. So you didn't miss a lot. I'm just gonna repeat, if you guys are okay, I'm just gonna repeat the first law so that Amber can flow with us. So Amber, the first law of German New Medicine is all about the conflict. And the conflict has specific criteria. It has to be sudden and unexpected. It has to be emotionally distressful. Most of the time, it's unconscious from the part of the client. You're lucky if it is in a conscious in their consciousness, but most of the time it's unconscious, and always it is subjective because it goes through our filters of religion and culture and social. And it has, when it registers as a conflict, automatically all three levels are affected because they are one organism: the psyche, the brain, and the organ. So it's automatic registry in all of those levels. That's it. That's the first law. That's what you missed.
Okay.
So now I'm asking, we're now in the question phase. If anybody has a question about it or have any comments. Now, are you still there, Amber?
Yeah.
Okay. So Shar asked or made a comment that sometimes the conflicts are too layered. Sometimes you don't even know where to begin, or the client doesn't even know how to begin unpacking all the layers. And our role, from my perspective, our role is to discern, do you unpack it at that moment, or do you let, at least for me, do I unpack this right now, or just let them go through the healing phase if they are in the healing phase? And then when you unpack, how do you unpack so many layers? And that's the reason last year when I was mulling over this, that's the reason I created the deep dive, because for me, the deep dive is bringing the unconscious to the conscious. But the client does go through many layers of questioning. So that's my deep dive framework. You will have your own style, you will have your own techniques in unpacking it for the client. And sometimes, like Annalise said, sometimes it's better not to even bring it up. So you will be the one discerning, do I even bring it up or not? Char, does that sound?
Yeah, it's good. But generally we're going to find many layers, many layers. So it's fascinating.
And for those individuals, I usually ask, okay, what is your priority symptom? Let's go with that for now. Once you've unpacked that topmost layers, like the skin layers, right? Once you've gotten that band-aid off, okay, what's the next layer? Maybe it doesn't, you don't feel it sensation-wise so much, but there's still that. So I usually ask them, or when I ask them to do the deep dive, what is the symptom that bothers you most? And let's start with that. And then we go layer by layer if they want. Anna, did you have a question? I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
No, you already answered what I asked. Thank you.
Okay. Now, so when the conflict registers, we wouldn't know unless you have a CT scan or unless you know how to read a CT scan. We wouldn't know in real time that it's happening. Only a CT scan can tell you that. So that's the conflict. Most of the time, it's not perceived consciously by us and the client. Now, I'm going to move on to the third law and come back to the second law. The third law is all about where is that conflict registered in the brain. So this can you see this? Can you see what I'm sharing?
If you have opened up the brain relations
Yes.
we can't see that. We can
No.
only see your file still.
How do I do that?
When you do share screen, you have to share like your screen rather than sharing just a window.
I do
So if you end your share and then start your share again,
that. Okay. Ah, got it. Okay. So stop share and then let's share again. Share this
so you
one.
would share like your whole window rather
This-
than just, or your whole screen rather than just a window.
And this one you're seeing.
It's black right now. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the third law. So when a conflict happens, it registers on a germ layer. And the reason this is very important is you need to pay attention to the color, because she will be referring to pictures like multicolored, right? So your cue not to get overwhelmed is focus on the color. So when she's talking about the endoderm, she's talking about brainstem, and so on and so forth. Mesoderm is orange but with stripes. And this registers in the cerebellum. The conflict is in the cerebellum. So this part of the brain here. Orange alone without stripes is the cerebral medulla, and the cortex is red. So yeah, this will be a good reference to have ready when she does her classes. Now let me see if I can pull up another. Now, so you have a conflict, and give me a second. Let me.
Do we have these pics in our handout?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. Yeah, this was fabulous, by the way. I am just telling you, it was so good. It was like, click,
Which
click,
one?
thank you.
Which one? Which one? The handout?
Yeah, all of that, but even just this very simple explanation of the color coding. It's just like so beautiful.
Because I
Isn't
wasn't
it?
sure whether you guys were tuning into her photos, and I was thinking, oh my god, they might get so confused because there's so many colors. And the reason it's this color is because of the German flag.
Oh, it's in the page 10, Charlene. The 10, if you need it.
So it's patterned after the colors of the German flag. Because initially I was thinking, why did you choose these colors? They're horrible colors. But they based, I'm sorry. No, I mean, they're, Anna, chime in here. They're horrible in terms of teaching material. Because like everything is bright. There is no delineation. Everything is bright. I would have loved to see cool hues.
Yes,
mixed
I understand what you mean. Yes.
with the warm tones.
Harm the eye, yes.
Probably eyes, but then I realized, oh, they patterned it after the German flag. Okay, fine. All right. So now it's registered on every brain control center. So the brain has 4 control centers. You have the brain stem, you have the cerebellum, you have the cerebral medulla, and you have the cortex. You will just have to make it a point to go back to an anatomy textbook and orient yourself. Where are those in the brain? I think I gave that to you during our very first meeting when I brought those anatomy books. Do you guys have any questions about where they are at in the brain? So essentially, if we go here, let me see if I can share this one. How do I, Amber, how do I not keep on switching?
Do you have one screen in front of you or 2?
I have many. Okay, here.
Many?
You see this one?
No. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It switched.
So this is a cross section of the brain, right? And in a sagittal way, like you're cutting yourself into left and right. So it's here. It's cut here in the middle. And this is now where you see the cortex. Follow the color code. The cortex, medulla. I don't know why she colored the medulla here red stripes. So maybe And this one, cerebellum, is white stripes. So just tune in. And then brainstem is yellow. So those are where your organ parts are.
I think they're yellow stripes, not white stripes on the cerebellum.
The cerebellum is white stripes.
Oh, to me it looks yellow. Maybe because it's
okay. All right.
brain.
Yellow stripes. And then this one is
red for new brain.
yes. So when the psyche perceives a conflict, it registers that it labels it separation conflict, loss conflict, and then it asks the four parts of the brain, who does this belong to? And then all those four parts will decide, oh, brainstem will say, oh, it's mine. Cerebellum may say, oh, it's mine. So when I say four parts of the brain, this is it: brainstem, cerebellum, medulla, cortex. They are the primary four organ control centers. All right, I'm going to switch again. So now we're going to go to the brainstem, the yellow one. Let me see how I can present this. Third, okay. Bear with me. All right. Each organ, I'm going to go back to that. I'm just going to use this slide for a sec. The parts of the brain are such that it depends on who developed first. So the brainstem developed first in our evolution, and the last to develop is the cerebral cortex. So that's the newest kid on the block, the red. Now, the brainstem being the old, it's the primitive. It contains all our primitive reflexes. If you can imagine building a building, the brainstem is the foundational layer. We will not survive without it. It involves all survival mechanisms, and survival is in the form of basic life-sustaining functions, which is governed by digestive, food, air, lungs, water, kidneys. Those are your basic life-sustaining functions. So I'm going to switch to a cross-section of that brainstem where it shows which organs are affected. And let's see if I can see.
Can you just go through that again for the brainstem, all survival?
So it's all about survival. So you are a builder. You're building a building. Brainstem is your first layer. It's your foundation. It's all about basic life-sustaining functions, without which the building will not exist. And life-sustaining functions is in terms of air, water, food. And therefore, the organ,
lungs, kidneys,
and digestive.
digestive.
Now, I don't know how to enlarge this photo
Is there
because it came from the website, so it just stayed as is, as that size.
is there a magnifying button on the bottom of your screen there?
Here, I'll show this. Okay, you have this too in your handouts, in your printed handouts that I mailed to you a long time in December. Okay.
You notice, do you see the slider on the bottom right-hand side of your screen there, where it slides from the magnifying glass at the bottom there?
Okay, yes.
If you slide that.
Yeah. I didn't know that function. Okay, thank you. Lovely. Okay, so that's why. So this is the brainstem now. It's a cross section again. This is a cross section. So this is sagittal view, where you cut your body from left to right. This is the coronal section, where you cut your body between upper and lower halves. This brainstem is cut in a coronal view. Okay, so you're cutting your brain this way. Now, so now you will see here all the organs that are associated with the life-sustaining. And the beautiful thing here is for the digestive system. So can you see my cursor? Okay, so the beautiful thing I like about this part is that the digestive system is all brainstem. So from the esophagus, it goes in a ring-like pattern. So esophagus, stomach here, liver, pancreas, small intestine. And then it crosses over to the other side, which is the beginning of the colon. Appendix cecum, colon, and then rectum. The bladder here refers to the urinary bladder, but this entire ring pattern is digestive, which makes it easy because everything digestive problem is brainstem. You don't have to worry about another germ layer, except the ends of the digestive, which is the mouth, because mouth is still part of digestive, and the anus. Those two ends are part of the cortex, the red. So you can worry about that later on. But I like the way it's nature organized it, so that most of the digestive system, if you can just remember, except for the mouth and anus, is all brainstem. Now, because yeah,
So mouth, anus is related to, can you say it?
cortex, ectoderm. Because yellow is endoderm. So endoderm is the basic foundation of your building. Okay. So with the brainstem, if you can imagine, so it's a ring-like formation, right? The brainstem is the only part of the brain that does not have laterality, that does not follow the laterality, because they do not cross over. Imagine these circles are as cross sections of cable wires. So within that circle are many cable wires going to the organ. So imagine you have all cable wires and they're just bunched up in circles. And these cable wires that come from the brainstem, they do not cross over, so that in other parts of the brain, once the cable wire from the right crosses over, then it affects the left side function. It does not apply on the brainstem. It's the only part of the brain where you do not apply laterality or handedness. It's irrelevant. You okay so far? Okay. And
They don't explain why, do they?
it's just the way that the brain is organized.
Okay.
Because the crossover happens above the brainstem.
Oh, okay.
And when you come to the brainstem, the crossover has already happened. So the crossover happens just at this level here.
Okay.
That's why the brainstem is not affected. But the cerebellum is affected with the crossover somewhat. The cable wires intersect also in the cerebellum. So digestive system, all brainstem, all yellow. That's why when you see your notes with the recent one she gave, the GNM that was passed, you will see almost the entire picture of the stomach and the digestive tract is almost yellow, except for the first and last, they will be red because it represents ectoderm. And then the uterus and the prostate is also brainstem. What else is here? So pay attention to these. These are the control panels. I have no other idea but to memorize it. So maybe just make it handy whenever she has her classes. I do try to ask her, what are you teaching next? So that if you guys want to read up before she comes, then you can, and you have these to refer to.
And the only time that we would use this, though, you said control panel, is if we were to look at a CT scan, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So in a CT scan, you will know where they're at, and then you can predict what the conflict is. But it's also useful because she does refer to what germ layer is affected, and then you know the association. What is the brain affected when this is the germ layer she's talking about? So yeah, so that's the brainstem. Now, I'm going now to move to, let me see if I'm done with the brainstem. Okay, all right. because the brainstem is all about survival, right? Basic life sustaining functions, the conflicts related to the brainstem will be all about survival conflicts. And that can vary, but that's just a general guide to keep in mind, because it can be breeding conflict, death fright, morsel conflicts, and procreation. Procreation because of these two here. So that's brainstem in general. If you will go to the, we'll go to the fourth layer later on. Okay, what else? All right, now I'm going to move on to the next, which is the cerebellum. And let's see. Okay. So here, cerebellum. Again, back to the building that you're creating. After the foundation, you now start laying the works for protection. So brainstem is all about organs of protection. And the breast glands are here for, just say, nurturing, protection and nurturing. These are medical terms: pleura, peritoneum, pericardium. Peri means around. So when you see pericardium, means around the heart, protection of the heart. Peritoneum, tonium is referring to the digestive tract. So it's your protection around the digestive organs. Imagine your organs lined with linen, your blanket. That's how it is. And that blanket encloses everything. And they're all connected. Now, pleura is the lining enclosing the lungs. And corium skin is the second layer of the skin. So you have the topmost, which is the epidermis. That's a different control system. After the epidermis is your dermis, and they refer to the dermis as corium skin. So we're talking about the dermis here, which is, by evolution, the first that developed to protect the fetus. The epidermis developed last. That's why this is here, because it's considered a protection organ.
Can you say one more time what corium skin is?
Corium skin is the dermis.
It's the dermis.
D-E-R-M-I-S. When you do a biopsy, for example, on your skin, and you do a cross section under the microscope, you will see layers. The topmost is the epidermis. That's a different organ system. After that comes the dermis.
Okay, thank
So
you.
when she says corium skin, think dermis, second layer. And it is the thickest layer of the skin. That is where your sweat glands are. That's where your oil glands are. Fatty tissue is there sometimes. Oh, no, sorry, that's subcutaneous. That is where your collagen is. So think about this as the first to develop in a fetus. So that's why it's the protective covering of the fetus. So all of these are for protection. Therefore, the conflicts will be related to attack conflicts in general, because there will be nest worry, there'll be argument conflicts later on with other body systems. But in general, it's all attack conflicts.
Richie, a question.
Yeah.
You say that these are protection.
Yeah.
In this part will be the heart and
No, the covering of the
the
heart.
covering of the heart, yeah. And then la pleura is
Pleura is the covering of the lungs.
yeah, and then but you said
Peritoneum.
something.
Peritoneum is the covering of the digestive system.
Oh, it is peritoneum. Okay, yeah, thank you.
And then the breast glands are here, not the ducts. So you have glands and ducts, which are the pipes. Just the glands are here. The pipes that allow the milk to flow through will be in a different organ system. So the breast has two germ layers. but the glands are here for nurturing.
Sorry, I'm going to ask one more question.
Yeah.
Pericardium, you said, is
Covering of the
surrounding
heart.
the heart. Is that right? Okay.
Peritoneum, covering the digestive system.
Pleura is lungs.
Pleura is lungs. Corium skin is dermis.
My grandfather had cancer in his pleura, so I knew what that was when I heard that one. I was like, oh, so that was very interesting to me when I heard that one.
So attack, conflict.
Yeah. I have no idea what it was, but
And so for the breast glands, there's 2 germ layers. Can you just speak on
Yeah.
that?
So the germ layers for that, let me see if I can bring it up from my computer here, because I already have that up. I think. Okay. Okay, let me go and so the breast has where am I? The breast has glands, right? The ones that produce the milk, and then the pipes that will lead the milk out of the breast into the nipple. The pipe is the duct, the milk duct. So that's a different organ layer from the ones that produce the milk.
Richie, can you say which germ layer that one is?
The ectoderm.
Thank you.
All right. So that's our cerebellum. Okay. For these two, this, by the way, this one comes from the old mesoderm, because the mesoderm, so there's 3 germ layers to begin with, the endo, meso, ecto. But in our evolution, the mesoderm split into 2, which is old and new. So when you're building the building, the oldest one comes first. So the oldest is the brainstem, and then the old mesoderm, and then the new mesoderm, and then the ectoderm. Now, the endoderm and the old mesoderm. So endoderm equivalent is brainstem. Old mesoderm equivalent is this, cerebellum. Those two, the way the tissue responds during a conflict will be opposite from the newest 2 layers, which is new mesoderm and ectoderm. Okay, let me present, because this one I don't have, am I seeing myself? Wait, can you see this?
yes, but you're very small because you're sharing your screen.
Okay. What I just wanted to point out with this one is, so all 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 brain control centers. These are the first 2 old ones. These are the last 2 new ones. This is in the back of the most recent one she gave us, the second GNM. And these 2 will have the same tissue response in terms of when you're in the conflict active, you will have cell proliferation or cell growth. And then when the healing phase begins, it will be cell loss, opposite. And that entire system is reversed with this one. When they're in the conflict active, they have cell growth. When they're in the healing phase, they have cell loss. That's
backwards, right?
Okay, backward. But that's what I wanted to show. So this is grouped when it comes to tissue response. We'll do the healing phases later. Oh yeah.
So just a question on that. So Amber and I will receive that Feb 15th.
Yes.
That's for us.
Yeah, I have yours. Yeah.
Great.
This is not in the GNM website. She did this herself, which was very useful. Right. So that's your cerebellum. Now we go to the next organ, which is the medulla. And so the medulla, the germ layer is the new mesoderm. And you're on the third part of your building now, not the third floor, but just the third component of your building. So you've built your foundation, you've built your protection. You are now building, your scaffold. That's why the skeletal system is here. You are now building it's more like an interior design now, because the accessories are here, the blood vessels are here, your lymphatics are here, your connective tissues are here. So that's the more refined structures of your building now. It's not necessarily necessary, but it does define your building in terms of structure. So scaffolding, structural, right?
Do you mean
Therefore,
do you mean like framing?
framing, they determine the integrity of your building. Therefore, the conflicts are related to self-worth, self-devaluation. If that makes sense. So when your integrity is compromised, your sense of self is compromised. All right. And then, so again, so this one, the laterality will apply, the handedness will apply. Now we move on to the last, which is the cortex. This is the newest kid on the block to develop. This is the ectoderm. And the organs here are primarily related to us relating to our external world. So they're the customer service, which means they are the ones picking up the senses. So you will mostly have your eyes are here. Well, the eyeball itself has many layers, but eyes will be here. Sensory areas will be here. So consider them your customer service and your IT or technology. Customer service, because they're relating to the world. The skin is here. The topmost layer is here because the skin is about connection. Physical.
Are we on ectoderm?
We are on ectoderm.
Okay.
This is ectoderm. So red is ectoderm, red is cortex.
Yeah.
Therefore, because they're anything that has to do with our outside world, the conflict is related to separation. Separation conflicts.
I think that the picture that you have up here is still on cerebral medulla.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you. I was like, oops.
There. Yeah. So they're all going to be, because they are how we relate to the external world, the conflicts are related to themes of separation. And again, there's so many. Don't memorize, just have it, I don't know, just have it hang on your wall maybe. Don't memorize it. Now, you will see here on the upper right-hand side, another color-coded brain. And all it's saying is the way the cables are organized in this part of the brain, they are bunched up such that all the organs that contribute to motor function are this purple here. Motor. And green are all the organs that have sensory components. Okay, that is why when she would say premotor, it's in front of the motor, this frontal lobe. It's pre-motor. Your reference is this, motor and sensory, purple and green. That's your reference. When she says pre-motor, she's talking about the area before the motor, which is this, which is the frontal lobe. When she talks about post-sensory, she's talking about what's behind the green, which is this, post-sensory. Okay. And Behind that even is your occipital lobe. This orange here is your cerebellum. Behind the post-sensory cortex or area is your occipital in the back, which governs vision. And that is why here, so you're moving, this is front, this is back, and that's why in the back you will see retina and vitreous body are parts of your eyeball. Here, this is eyeball, this is vision. And that is why you will see these different colored here, because they wanted to delineate motor and sensory and post or behind sensory. This one. Does that make sense? Is that making sense?
So good. So good, Richie Ann. So happy you're doing this.
Okay. All right. But don't try to memorize this because, yeah, don't. All right. And you see now here, the rectum is here now. I don't see the mouth, so it's somewhere there maybe. But remember I told you the digestive system, the ends are part of this cerebral cortex. So rectum is here now, mouth should be here somewhere. The skin, the epidermis is also part of this, but it's not outlined here. So it's there somewhere.
Mouth would be, what would
Mouth
that
would
be
be this.
considered? What part of the
Ectoderm, this one,
lateral view?
cortex.
But which part of the lateral view would that be considered?
What part of the?
The mouth, the lateral view, that the purple and green and yellow thing at the top right-hand corner?
Both. It will straddle both, because the mouth has your tongue, which is sensory, and then it has your lips, which moves. So it will straddle both. It's just that they did not make space for it, I guess. They didn't show mouth where it is. It's somewhere here.
And in that where it says right and left enamel, like enamel meaning the
Teeth.
only enamel that I know of is teeth. That's what it means?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
There's probably somewhere here. The mouth area will be somewhere. The cables for the mouth will be somewhere here.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's your cortex. Conflicts related to separation, because it's all about our relationship to the external world. So that's your third law in a nutshell. I will attempt, and attempt is a word, I will attempt to list all the organs, and what germ layers are they derived from. I already did it for myself, but I feel maybe it will help you. So organs here, for example, eyes, and this will be endoderm, mesoderm, ectoderm. Does it have components from each of the germ layer or none? So I'll try to come up with something like this as a reference.
If you can send that like ASAP, because I'm gonna take my binder with me on my trip.
Probably the one I have is a draft. It's not the most complete one.
Okay,
And I will refine, I will keep refining as I go.
all right,
But yeah, I can send what I have right now.
that's awesome, thanks.
All right. Now, so that's the third law. You guys okay with moving on to the second law? Okay. The second law, did I miss anything here? So do you have questions about laterality, or should I talk about that?
The only question I have about laterality is when I wasn't there and she got you guys to clap in the room, she was talking about somebody had laterality different than what their handedness was with writing.
Yeah.
Does GNM go off of which hand is the top hand when clapping?
Yes, which is the top.
Okay.
Now, do not confuse handedness with laterality. She will use them interchangeably, but they are not equal.
Okay.
Oh, when she
When
talks,
she says handedness, she means laterality.
I know, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
So remember, when handedness is your dominant hand, it's that simple. Laterality is where is the conflict registering in the brain.
Okay.
I wondered about that too.
Okay, so laterality is where is it in the brain?
Where is
Which
it in
side
the,
of the brain? handedness is which side you're more dominant on.
Correct. And it's important because when you are say dealing with the cerebral cortex program, skin, it's important to know where is the symptom, because where the symptom is, the
Is that-
registry of the conflict is on the opposite side of the brain.
Okay.
Okay. So for example, with Charlene, right? I interviewed her, her skin lesion was on the left side. So she's right-handed. Her skin lesion was on the left side, right? With, again, it depends on which layer. Just understand laterality is where is it, hold on a second. From what I understand, laterality is where is it registering. Help me out, Char. Your lesion was on the left side. Your lesion was on the left side. Therefore, and it's epidermis, which is cerebral cortex. Therefore, the conflict was on the right side of the brain because it crosses over. And your conflict was with a partner, which is aligned with being right hand dominant. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Was that clear, Amber?
I think so. I think I had
Let's
it
do this again.
confused myself, but
From how I understand,
This is going to be work in progress for all of us. So the more we hear it, I think the more we hear it, the more it's going to sink in.
Yeah.
from how I understand it, and we can ask her again. Where, so if you're right-handed, if your conflict, not the symptom, if the conflict is on the other side, so you're right-handed and the conflict registered on the left side of the brain, the issue is mother and child. Because what she's saying is if you're right-handed, you need that hand to be free. So you're carrying your child on the left. So everything that's on the left is a mother-child conflict. For
so
a
it shows up
right-handed.
on like it shows up in symptoms on the left hand side, but if you're looking at the CT scan, it's going to show up on the right hand side of the
Correct.
brain.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. You got it. All right. So now we move on to the second. We're back to the second law now. Let me just pull up graphics for that one. This is a most important graphic to put to heart, to take to heart. This, when she says, do you see it? When she talks about, do you have the compass? This is what she means. Because she would refer to this once in a while. It's in the compass. Do you have the compass? And it's not a literal compass. This is what she means. So this outlines all the 4 layers now. Brainstem here, cerebellum, medulla, and cortex. And this is what I was alluding to earlier. When the tissues respond, they are grouped so that brainstem and cerebellum, in the conflict active phase, they will manifest as cell growth, or cell proliferation is just another term for growth. They will manifest as cell growth or cell tumor. That's why she likes in this first handout that she gave, she named the 3rd biological law as tumors because she's referring to cell proliferation, not cancer tumors. It's just her term for cell proliferation. Now, if you see here on the graph, the opposite happens with the 2 newer layers. When they're in the conflict active phase, it's loss. And the reverse happens in the healing phase. Okay. Now, the healing, this entire thing will only happen if there is a resolution of the conflict. This healing phase will only happen if there is a resolution of the conflict, which they term conflictolysis, CL. So this is grouped according to color. So blue and blue to them, which to me, I would not have used these colors, but because blue is cool, right? But conflict active signifies sympathetic response, fight and flight, or flee and fawn. And predominantly, the healing phase is corresponds to parasympathetic, which is the relaxation, the rest and digest mode. So in general, people who are in conflict active phase will feel cold. Oh, sorry, will feel cold. Maybe that's why it's blue. It's a cold phase. They call it the cold phase. Will feel cold because all the energies are reverted to the more important organs. So your hands and your feet will feel cold. That's why she says the first thing she does when she meets a client is she feels their extremities to see where they're at. I don't know how accurate that is because I always have cold hands, but I'm not.
So do I.
So this is sympathetic, this is parasympathetic. Okay. Anna, you're good? Do you need me to go through what the symptoms are in sympathetic?
No, I understood this part. Yesterday I was reading this. It's okay. But the same for me. The hands always are cold, so I don't know. No, but yeah, more difficult for me was the before part. But we had to continue. I had to study more. It's okay.
Okay.
So just repeating that. So when we're in the conflict active phase, cold hands, cold feet,
In general,
in general, you're in that fight flight response. And then eventually, when all is well, then you move into parasympathetic.
you move into parasympathetic. So now the blood vessels, instead of constricting, they now start expanding to allow more blood, because with blood comes the helper cells. That's why you're warm. That's why you have fevers. And then fatigue sets in as well. An uptake in the appetite also sets in. It's the rest and digest in the healing phase. Now, again, depending on what organ level is affected, the conflict active, they may respond, these two, cerebellum, brainstem, they will respond with cell growth or cell proliferation. It's as if, imagine if you are perceiving a lack of supply, a lack of food, a lack of air, a lack of water, they're going to be producing more cells. So they can recruit more of those cells to give you the function, to give you the water, to give you the air, to give you the food. That's why they're producing more in the conflict active. The opposite happens with these two newer layers. They're going to be scaling back resources because they're going to be conserving the energy for the more important layers, which is the life-sustaining function. So their response here will be cell loss. As if those conflicts are not that important for survival. That's why they're responding as scaling back resources. And once healing starts, then the opposite happens. Makes sense so far? Okay.
Actually, the way that you said that just made it like I had an aha moment.
Okay.
That's an easy way for me to remember cell loss and the reason why.
Right? Because when you're hungry for air, then the body will help you. Okay, let's make more.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and then
yeah,
like maybe skin loss because it realizes that, well, you said it needs to conserve energy for the more important organs.
yeah.
So it's your body's still worried about survival at this moment.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why you can lose hair when you're experiencing a separation conflict, because the body doesn't think that's an important organ to begin with. So
Yeah.
okay, don't forget about the pain from the loss then, temporarily separate from it.
Yeah.
All right. Now, again, this conflictualizes has to happen. Otherwise, they go into a hanging conflict, which I will let her explain that. But just know that if the conflictualizes doesn't happen, it becomes a recurring conflict active. Over and over again. And that's when you start losing energy. You start having weight loss, like what happened to Manuel. Energy loss, weight loss, sleep deprivation. And because of the ongoing fear that keeps worsening the situation, he just keeps looping in the conflict active phase. What else to say here? When you are in this phase, you will see sleep disturbed pattern because the body is still trying to find ways to solve the problem. So the sleep will be fragmented in the conflict active phase. And this is also the stage wherein you discern, do you bring up the conflict with the client or not? So it depends on how much you know your client. All right. So now you go to, say you resolve the conflict, you now go to the healing phase. In the healing phase, it has exudation is pus. This is medical term for pus. Edema is here because we heal in a fluid environment, right? Edema is water. Pus from the fungi. Now that is touching on the fourth law, which is all about bacteria and fungi. The fourth law is basically this: the bacteria and the fungi evolved older than we have ever been on this earth, and that's why they are the first responders, the first helpers. And according to Anneli, when the pus is really cloudy or smelly,
Yeah, just one, please.
say that again, Dylan.
Hi, go ahead.
So she said, when the TB or tuberculosis
Yes.
tuberculosis and
Yes,
fungi
hi,
are
I'm
at work,
Dylan.
the night sweats will be very smelly. There will be pus and discharge that are smelly, right?
Okay.
But if it's bacteria at work, it's not.
I'm actually on a Zoom call, training session. Is it possible that we can talk? I'm just looking at the clock. Can we talk about 1:30?
Not muted.
Or do you want me to call you?
Say that again.
I don't think that she knows she's not muted.
You can mute now, Deli.
Okay, may I have it again, please?
Lynn, do you want to mute yourself?
Yep,
Oh, I thought it was for me.
right.
I don't think she can hear. Is there a
No.
way you can mute her, Shar?
I've got that. Yeah, thanks.
The host should be able to.
8222. Okay. And
Go
do I
into
just
view.
talk to anybody?
Into view mode, I think that there's check mark boxes or something that you can.
Done. It's done. It's done.
Okay.
So
Oh, she's muted. Perfect.
with fungi, it's a more intense everything compared to bacteria. That's how she said it. That's the fourth law. That's it. We're done with the fourth law. We're back on the second law. So when conflictualisis happens, you go into the healing phase. You have pus, you have water. Now, there is this epileptoid crisis, which always happens, according to her, always happens. And what it is it reverts back. You see the blue here? The body reverts back to the sympathetic state for one final moment. Why does it do that? It's like a power surge. It tries to get all the fluid out. Because remember, the fluid is not just in the organ, it's also in the brain. They're acting as one system. So it's not good for fluid to stay in the brain if it's not needed, but it needs a push. It needs a what do you say, a squeeze. It needs a squeeze out. And that's where you shift the patient. You will notice from a vagotonia, from a parasympathetic, they might start having fast heartbeat, blood pressure high, coughing fits, seizures, and all of that is the body's way of the contractions of the muscles is the body's way of contracting, expelling all the excess fluid out. And how does it do that? And you will notice during an epileptoid crisis, the client will be peeing more. So now, once this is done, it goes to scarring. And in the scarring phase is when you might see it registered on a CT scan as a brain tumor, because the scarring appears very defined as a white circle. And most doctors may read it as a tumor, but it's actually the brain has scarred. It's resolved. So that is your second law.
I have a question. She's said lots and lots of times that healing happens in fluid.
Yeah.
I think I got confused though when cell proliferation in the kidneys happens, and that makes you retain fluid. But when you're having a cerebral cortex or a cerebral medulla conflict, like one of the new brain conflicts.
Yeah.
Is there still going to be the epileptoid crisis where you pee a lot? Like, is it still healing in fluid?
The intensity of the peeing depends on whether you are having the syndrome. So you're having a cerebral medulla or brainstem conflict, for example. If that alone is happening, then they may go through an epileptoid crisis, but mild. They may not even perceive it. Maybe it's just 1 or 2 extra peeing in that day, maybe. But the peeing may be intense when the syndrome is happening, and the syndrome means they're having the brainstem or medulla conflict or whatever brain conflict in the healing phase. They're already in the healing phase. Plus, they perceive an abandonment conflict, or what's the other one she said? Abandonment and
Nest worry.
what's the other one?
I'm thinking nest worry.
No, it's not nest worry. The syndrome are 2. Hold on, let me just.
The syndrome is abandonment plus something
Another
else.
one.
Is it a specific one or could it be
Yeah,
anyone?
Oh, existence. If there is abandonment, so you're already having on your own healing phase from a conflict, and then that individual also perceived an abandonment conflict or an existence conflict, and she added 2 more, a refugee conflict or a hospitalization. If any of those 4 are perceived by that individual already in the healing phase of a program, that entire constellation is a syndrome. The syndrome is when the kidneys amp it up by retaining water.
Mm-hmm.
So that when the individual goes through an epileptoid crisis, the expel of the water is more intense because they're
Okay.
having an extra problem.
If there was no KCT conflict at all, if it was just a
Biological problem.
separation, and say a separation
Yeah.
conflict
Yeah.
in the in the epi crisis, where there is lots of water being let go, like lots of peeing.
Yeah.
That happens there too. It's not just
As intense.
okay.
Yeah. With a syndrome, everything is more intense, more fluid, more pain, more swelling.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
the difference. Yeah. So that's your epicrisis. What else? When you are in the epicrisis, she keeps emphasizing limit the water intake. That's important. Julia also shared juniper oil. I researched on the rooibos tea that Fiona suggested, but research is saying it's not a strong diuretic at all, but juniper oil is. So if you know of diuretics that can help in a herbal way, natural supplement way, then you can use that during the epicrisis.
Asparagus.
Hmm?
Asparagus.
Oh, okay.
Natural
Oh.
diuretic.
I think it's a dandelion tea in last week's handout. Did anybody see that?
Dandelion tea?
Dandelion tea.
Okay, good.
I think too, well, I don't know, but watermelon
Yep.
may go be a lot.
So you can use whatever it is in your toolbox, memory box, use your diuretics.
Yeah.
So she also alluded to being very careful about using medications that amplify the sympathetic while they're in the conflict active and amplify the vagotonic while in their healing phase. I personally don't have a list of that. She did list it in your first handout. She did give a brief list, so you can refer to that too. But they're more in the realm of medication. So just being careful that they do not amplify that particular phase of the healing. What else can I think of? Do you have questions? Because that is essentially the second law.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Annalise said that when we have a tumor, when the doctor diagnosed that it's a tumor, or cancer, or whatever, this means for her that is being cured, that is being healing. I have.
It will depend on, is she talking about a brain tumor or is she talking about an organ?
Organ.
And if it's an organ tumor, okay, so here, you're still seeing the compass, right?
Yes.
So again, tumor is equal to growth, is equal to cell proliferation. So if it's in the organ, and if you see it, you now trace it back to, okay, what level of the brain is this organ associated with? And if it's these two levels, then you know that the tumor is in the conflict active phase. If you're seeing tumor and you're tracing the association of the organ to either cortex or medulla, then that tumor will be here because it's the opposite of cell loss. In the healing phase, it's a tumor. Then you can pinpoint that, oh, they're already in the healing phase.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that part, but it is in the cerebellum and the brainstem.
It depends on which organs are in charge of that. Sorry, it depends on which part of the brain is in charge of that organ.
Yeah.
Trace it back, either of these two. And now you can know, okay, if I see a tumor and it's these two parts of the brain that are involved, then I know tumor will be in this section, which is in the healing phase. If I see, if that organ is, say, digestive, and you have a growth, colon cancer, whatever, growth. So you trace it to the brainstem, digestive brainstem. Oh, if you see a tumor, then okay, maybe they're in the conflict active, or the conflict has been a hanging conflict. So over time, it's starting to scar, and there's a lack of fungi and bacteria to eat them up because the individual is compromised when it comes to their prebiotics or probiotics.
Okay.
So there are many interpretations of a tumor.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
There, that's it. We made it.
Richie, I have a question. And forgive me if I'm repeating something that's already been talked about because I was interrupted with a call that I needed to take. And I know that we were talking about what shows up in the conflict active phase at some point. So my question that I wrote down earlier this morning was, if conflict active phase has no symptoms, how do we know we're retaining water? Because I was reading about the KCT syndrome. So, and then we've just had this conversation. You said in the conflict active phase, we go into fight, flight, freeze, cold hands and feet, reduced appetite, etc. Am I on the right track with that? Is that the symptoms that are going to show up?
In the conflict active.
Yes. Yeah.
Water retention can manifest as increase in thirst. It can manifest as puffiness of the skin. So imagine your pipes, the water inside your blood vessels seeping out and accumulating underneath your skin. So puffiness of the skin, especially in the gravity dependent areas, legs, eye bags, or dark circles.
Or not peeing, right?
A
If
lot
you're
of
not
peeing.
peeing. No,
Yeah.
no peeing, because you wouldn't be, it'd be holding on to the water.
Yes, yes. So, or thirstiness. Thirsty and yet they're not peeing as much.
Oh, okay. So that was my specific question, actually. How do we know that we're retaining water? And you just said puffy skin and, okay, yeah.
Increase in thirst, and yet you're not peeing. You're retaining.
Mhm.
So interesting too, to speak about that, because quite often then, Richie Ann, those individuals can be diagnosed with diabetes.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Insipidus, yeah.
Mm.
And then they're gonna be given diuretic.
Oh,
Yeah. Congestive heart failure. I'm seeing it now. When she was talking about KCT, I'm like, holy shit, the congestive heart failure patients, because they're drowning in fluid. And we've been doing it wrong. That's, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, that's your 5 laws.
May I ask another question?
Mhm.
Vertigo is related to which
Many.
germ layer?
No, it's not a germ layer. It's many things. It's many. You have to pinpoint what is the source of the vertigo. Is it neurologic? Is it the senses? Is it the ears? Is
Okay,
it a type problem?
so in the case that I'm thinking of, it's related to a cyst, which is just about here.
And do you have a CT scan finding of where exactly it is?
This is someone, not me, obviously somebody I know, and I don't know about that. I think she had an MRI. No, she didn't have the MRI yet. I'll ask about the CT scan.
Because if it's ears, because you're pointing here, post auricular, if it's ears, the ears, I believe, have ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm contribution. So which one?
Wow.
Yeah.
So no, it's behind the ear,
Behind the ear, which could be the mastoid process.
behind the mastoid or below the mastoid. You know where the dips are back here?
Then that's your styloid.
That's your
Thyroid,
styloid?
thyroid process, which is the fangs.
Thyroid process.
If it's thyroid process, that's bone,
Oh, okay.
you know. So you see how nuanced it is?
Yeah.
You can't just go by visual. Ideally, you have a CT scan, especially if it's the internal organs, because which one?
Okay. Okay. So that's good information. Thanks.
Yes. Another comment on the new mesoderm, the self-devaluation. Let me see if I can pull it again. We have it. Just this last one, Shar. I know Shar has to go. Medulla. Okay. So this one, this layer, cerebral medulla. I told you it contains the scaffold, right? The skeletal system is here, muscles are here, connective tissue, fat layer, blood vessels are here, lymphatics, bones, and joints. The response, or the way you know how mild or severe the conflict is if you can imagine the bone is the innermost layer and the joints. The more inner the layer is, the more severe the conflict. So let's start from the outer part. So if it's connective tissue, if it's fat, blood vessels, that's a mild conflict of self-devaluation. The deeper you go, muscle layer, lymphatics, that's a moderate conflict of self-devaluation. So if you have a bone issue, a joint issue, that's severe devaluation conflict going on for long periods of time. So look back at your CT scan of your spine, CT scan of MRI of your spine. If the joints and the bones are affected, that's an ongoing severe devaluation conflict. There. I'm thinking of anything else that I may have missed. But I think that's it in a nutshell.
I didn't hear the microbes part. We did talk about those.
The 4th layer,
Yeah, the 4th biological law.
Yeah, I talked about it when I talked about
Sorry.
so here, the compass. The fourth layer. Shar, do you need to go? I can switch. Can I use yours?
Yeah, I've got 5 minutes, so I'm good. And then I'll just leave it open and then you can close it.
Okay, this should be easy. So fungi and bacteria are the oldest organisms that evolved. And that's why that's why they are recruited first when these older layers are affected. They are consider them your SWAT team. They're your specialized first helpers. They already exist in our body, but they are not activated until you have a conflict in these two. They're only activated special forces when these two are in when we have conflicts in these two. And when they are at work, the difference, she says, how to tell between bacteria and fungi is everything is nastier with fungi. The smell is nastier. Night sweats, nastier. Pus or discharge, cloudier, more foul smelling compared to the manifestation of a bacterial healing.
She's talked a lot about TB bacteria. Is there a difference between TB bacteria and just bacteria?
Yes. So TB bacteria, means tuberculosis bacteria, couple that with fungi. So put that in a lump, organize them together. Fungi and TB bacteria go together. Those
Okay.
are twin sisters.
And sorry, okay. And then with the newer brain, it says tissue restoration with bacteria.
This is
TB
any bacteria.
would not be there.
Correct. This is any bacteria now except these two.
Okay. Okay. And so with the old brain, it's TB bacteria and fungi or any other kind of bacteria as well. It can be any kind of bacteria.
Oh, yeah. Any kind of bacteria. It's just that and bacteria have specific jobs. There are bacteria for the skin. There's bacteria for the oral cavity. So we're teeming with bacteria, but they have their specific departments.
If they go into different departments, is that bad then?
I wouldn't consider it bad because everything is happening perfectly, right? So they may have a purpose in going to another department to help.
Well, what I mean, the reason why I'm asking is because my dog just got vaccinated the other day. And so they were talking like when people are getting vaccinated or dogs are getting vaccinated because of bacterias or whatever. I don't even know what the vaccinations are for, but I don't even know how to ask the question that I'm trying to ask. Maybe I should use somebody else's dog as an example. My girlfriend's dog just had surgery because part of its colon was eaten up and they had to remove it. It was dead. They had to remove part of the colon, or I think it was small intestine. I don't remember which part it was, but anyways, part of it. And they said it was salmonella. Is salmonella not a bacteria?
It is.
So when we have these scares or when there's these things being said that you have to be careful of this type of bacteria and ingesting it or getting it like salmonella, that is salmonella not something that it doesn't belong in our body, right? In a human body? Is there a place for it in the human body?
I have to check, but I feel like we have all of these organisms, including salmonella.
Yeah.
However, the body keeps it in check in terms of not proliferating too much to tip the balance. The other thing that you need to be cautious of is when they say your dog, he had that out, and then they analyze it in pathology and they saw salmonella, the medical system will think, oh, that's what caused it.
Yeah, they said they weren't exactly sure and it didn't make sense that it was that, but that's what they thought it was. But it just made me start thinking GNM.
When they see, oh, lots of salmonella, they already assume causation instead of exploring, well, maybe they were here because they needed to help. So that's that's one gift that GNM has given me, to see it in that way, that not because they isolated that in culture, that means it caused the disease.
Okay. It just made me start thinking about GNM when they said it was salmonella. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense because bacteria is supposed to help the body. So I'm not understanding the whole microbes part of it. So that's why I thought I'd ask the question.
I do have to run, but Amber, it's quite fascinating for me when you're mentioning a vaccine for your dog. I just was kind of curious, like, how old's your dog?
13 weeks, and you're supposed to get vaccinations for them. Like,
Okay, gotcha.
you get some at like 8 weeks, and then again, like 2 or 3 weeks later for a booster, and then another month later for another booster. So,
And you're just kind of following protocol based on what you learned from that medical.
yeah, and I was shamed in the pet store the other day. I had her with me, and somebody was like, "Oh, is she up on her shots?" And I was like, "No, she's only got her first set." And they're like, "Oh, well, you shouldn't be taking her places because she could get sick and catch something. She's really little, and you need to be very careful." And I felt like so terrible. So I was like,
Well, that's a belief system. And then I'm just going to close at that.
yeah.
I was gonna say, follow your gut, and I do have to go. I was just curious, that's all. I just like, maybe what I would like to share with you is we've had our, like, the two pets that I'm very accountable for, and it's not the path that I'm choosing for my pets, because I'm feeling for my pet, just like human, what is it that I am going to be putting into that body, and then what are potential consequences? That's
Mhm.
all. So
Mhm.
you have a young pup, you can make all the decisions that you choose, continue to trust your gut. I just love the way nature takes care of everything. And that's why
Mhm.
we're doing German New Medicine.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can't wait to see you, Amber. Looking,
Me too.
Char needs to go. She's the host.
yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions? You're good for now.
We're good.
If you want, we can chat. I can call you if you need more clarification.
Okay.
You
Thank
good?
you so much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Richie Ann. Oh my
It
goodness.
was fantastic. That was so
Thank
good.
you so much. Yes.
Good. All right.
It was really helpful to have all these little pieces pulled together
Yeah.
and to hear it again. And it just, yeah, it helps so much.
I
Thanks for
wanted to make sure that you recognize patterns, because it's going to be so confusing moving forward.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just share this video with the others.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank
Char.
you, Charlene.
Enjoy Hawaii. Bye.
Bye bye.
Everyone.